Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're diving into a concept that, well, it underpins so much of the storytelling we consume, often without us even realizing the full extent of its impact. I'm talking about the shared universe. We all think we know what a shared universe is, but okay, let's unpack this. Our mission for this deep dive is to really go beyond that surface definition. We want to uncover the surprising complexity, the rich historical evolution, and the incredibly varied forms these shared universes take across a multitude of media. Think of this as your in-depth guide, a shortcut, really, to truly appreciating this fascinating, constantly evolving concept.
And it really is more relevant now than ever, isn't it? I mean, just look around at the media landscape. So many major franchises are built on this very structure.
Right.
It's not just about superheroes, although, yeah, they certainly leap to mind. What's truly fascinating here is that it's become a fundamental and still evolving way stories are told and consumed. It offers those, moments about connections you might never have noticed before.
Absolutely. So to set the stage, at its heart, a shared universe is essentially a fictional world. Think of it like a collaborative sandbox, maybe,
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
where multiple creators contribute. Each of their works, importantly, can stand alone, but they all fit into a bigger, jointly developed story, character arcs, or the overall world itself.
Mhm.
You see this most commonly in genres like science fiction, fantasy.
Right. But it's crucial, though, to clarify what a shared universe isn't, because it often gets confused with similar concepts we're all familiar with. For instance, it's not just a simple crossover.
Okay.
That's where, independent characters or stories meet for maybe a single event, perhaps for marketing or even a playful what-if scenario,
Yeah.
like seeing two different cartoon characters meet. Crossovers don't necessarily merge their backstories permanently. Now, crossover can definitely happen within a shared universe,
Sure.
but it doesn't define one.
Yeah.
And it's also not the same as collaborative writing.
Right, where everyone's working on the exact same book or script.
Exactly. That's multiple artists working together on the same specific work, not contributing separate works to the same world. There's also this more expansive term, an imaginary entertainment environment.
Ooh, that sounds interesting.
It is. It's a kind of shared universe that's just so vast, it naturally expands across multiple types of media. Novels, films, video games. Each new piece builds on the same history, the same characters. It's a truly sprawling narrative ecosystem.
It's interesting how that term, or even just shared universe, has kind of bled into broader contexts, too. Beyond fictional worlds, you sometimes hear it used in a wider, sort of non-literary sense, to convey a common understanding or framework for discussion, often as a shared universe of discourse.
Yeah, like everyone's operating with the same basic assumptions or language. Now, as you can probably imagine, when you have multiple creative minds contributing to a single sprawling narrative like this, well, maintaining consistency becomes incredibly difficult. Writers face inherent challenges in avoiding contradicting details, especially as these universes grow very large and run for a long time.
So how do they manage that?
This is where the concept of canon comes in. Canon is basically the version of the story or the set of facts deemed official by the author or, more often, the company controlling the setting.
Okay, the official storyline.
Exactly. But it's worth noting, not all shared universes actually have a single controlling entity. And even when they do, fans don't always agree with these official determinations.
Oh, definitely not.
Sometimes what emerges is something called fanon.
Fanon.
Yeah, it's like a degree of consensus within the setting's fandom, the fan community, when an official canon is lacking, or maybe even disputed, like fans might collectively agree on some detail that's never been officially stated.
That concept of canon sounds absolutely crucial for keeping these sprawling universes coherent. But what happens when, like you said, the fans have a completely different idea of what should be canon, especially in long-running series? Does that tension ever actually benefit the universe, or is it always a struggle?
It's usually a struggle, I'd say, or at least a tension over creative direction. And when those contradictions do inevitably pop up in the official material,
Which they always do.
right, writers have a tool to fix them, retconning. It's short for retroactive continuity.
Ah, the retcon.
Exactly. Think of it like hitting the undo button or maybe rewriting history slightly on a specific detail to fix inconsistencies and make everything fit together more seamlessly again. It's a powerful tool, but sometimes controversial.
I can imagine. I definitely remember times when readers weren't exactly thrilled when a story or maybe a whole series got sort of retroactively integrated into a larger shared universe. It could feel like, the publisher was suddenly making one hero's fans buy other heroes' comics just to keep up with the main story.
Exactly. And this really highlights the precise thinking required, especially for those meticulously crafted comic book universes. It's fascinating, actually. Comics historian Don Markstein, way back in 1970, laid out some incredibly specific criteria for defining a shared universe in an article in Kappa Alpha.
1970.
Mhm.
Wow.
And what's truly fascinating about Markstein's rules isn't just how detailed they are, but how they show the fundamental challenges intellectual property, logistics that pop up when multiple creators build on one world. They're almost like a blueprint for managing creative chaos.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What are these rules?
Okay, so first, transitivity. If character A has met character B and B has met C, then transitively A and C are in the same universe. Makes sense. Second, no real people connection. Characters cannot be connected just because they both interacted with real people. So the example he used was Superman met JFK, Kennedy met Neil Armstrong, Armstrong met the Fantastic Four. That doesn't mean Superman and the Fantastic Four are automatically in the same universe.
Right, that would connect almost everything.
Exactly. Third, no outside characters. Yeah. You can't connect characters using characters that didn't originate with the publisher. So, say Superman met Hercules, and the Fantastic Four also had Hercules. That doesn't connect them if Hercules is just a public domain figure or belongs to another company.
Got it. Keeps the universes distinct.
Fourth, and this is a fun one, specific fictionalized versions can connect. If you have a specific fictionalized version of a real person, his example was the Jerry Lewis from DC Comics' own comic book, who was distinct from the real Jerry Lewis because, get this, he had a magical housekeeper.
Seriously?
Seriously. That specific version can be used as a connection. And this also applies to specific versions of public domain fictional characters, like Marvel Comics' specific take on Hercules or DC's version of Robin Hood.
Okay, that's quite specific.
And finally, fifth, on-panel appearance. Characters are only considered to have met each other if they actually appeared together, on the page, on panel, in a story. Not to mention,
Wow, I never would have thought of those specific, almost like you said, legalistic rules for comics. It really highlights how complex managing these words became even way back then.
it really does.
So with these foundational ideas, these rules, these concepts like canon and retconning in mind, how have these interconnected worlds actually grown and evolved across the just vast landscape of media from those early roots to today's, ubiquitous blockbusters? Let's maybe start with print publications, specifically novels. It's fascinating how the expansion of existing material into a shared universe isn't just restricted to, say, licensed settings that might have started in movies or TV.
That's absolutely right. A great example is Larry Niven's known space setting. He actually opened it up to other writers for a series like the Mansin Wars.
Why did he do that?
Well, he felt his own lack of military experience meant he couldn't adequately describe these huge interstellar wars between humans and these tiger-like aliens, the Dinti. It wasn't always smooth sailing, though. There was apparently some controversy when one writer created an erotic story set in known space.
Oh,
Yeah, which led Niven to clarify later that his setting should really only be used under restricted circumstances and with permission. So control is still a factor.
which contrasts quite a bit with someone like author Eric Flint. He took a much more direct, hands-on approach, didn't he? Editing and publishing collaborations with fan fiction writers himself to expand his 1632 series.
Exactly, a very different philosophy about creative control and collaboration in these open-ended universes. You also see posthumous expansions, settings being developed after the original creator's death.
Right.
A famous, maybe slightly controversial example is August Derleth's development of the Cthulhu mythos from H.P. Lovecraft's writings. Some purists consider Derleth's take completely dissimilar to Lovecraft's own cosmic horror.
I can see that.
But then you have less controversial examples, like Ruth Plumley Thompson and other authors continuing L. Frank Baum's beloved Oz stories after his death. Or authors like Greg Bear, Gregory Benford, and David Brin further developing Isaac Asimov's expansive Foundation universe with the permission of his estate, of course.
And a lot of other published works in this vein take the form of short story anthologies, right, with occasional standalone novels, where different authors contribute stories to a single shared world.
Precisely. Think of classics like Robert Len Asprin's Thieves' World, or C.J. Cherry's Merovingian Nights, or Janet Morris's Heroes in Hell. They built these really vibrant worlds through multiple voices.
Okay, so from novels, let's jump to comics, where this idea really seems to have exploded.
Oh, absolutely. In comics, Shared universe basically reflects the overall milieu, the setting, created by the publisher. It's expected that characters and events from one comics line will frequently appear in others.
Yeah.
By 1961, you had Marvel Comics writer and editor Stan Lee working with amazing artists like Jack Kirby and Steve Ditko, consciously merging the bulk of their existing characters into what we now know as the Marvel Universe.
The birth of the Marvel Universe?
Pretty much. And now, of course, Marvel sets stories in an ever-increasing number of alternate realities, all within a larger multiverse.
And what's really interesting is that DC Comics and Marvel, the two big competitors, have actually periodically co-published series where their characters meet.
Yeah, those intercompany crossovers.
But they've typically been written as, like, self-limiting events, right? To avoid suggesting the DC and Marvel universes permanently coexist.
Usually, yes. They keep the boundaries clear.
But here's an intriguing fact, a notable exception. Remember Amalgam Comics back in 1996?
Vaguely, yeah.
Yeah.
That was wild.
Right. 24 comics released under this sort of metafictional imprint. It depicted a true shared universe populated by literal hybridizations of the two companies' characters, like Darkclaw Batman and Wolverine merged, or Super Soldier, Superman, and Captain America.
That was such a fun, bizarre experiment.
Totally. It was playing with the idea of shared universes. And Marvel has since actually labeled that whole amalgam reality, Earth 692, as part of its own multiverse.
Huh. Of course they did. And, other companies have tried similar publisher-wide shared universes too. Valiant Comics had one called Unity, and CrossGen launched what they called the Sigelverse.
Right. Okay, so moving from the page to the screen, let's explore how these interconnected worlds manifest in films and television. These mostly seem to consist of, like, an umbrella of multiple film or TV franchises, all set within the same continuity. Each franchise tells its own standalone story, usually focusing on different characters, maybe different casts, directors, writers, but they all remain part of one coherent, non-contradictory shared continuity. Hopefully.
Hopefully is the key word sometimes.
We often hear the terms cinematic universes, for those mainly in films, and television universes for TV. If it's big in both, it's usually just called a cinematic universe. And these can also be accompanied by, video games, print works, telling additional canonical stories.
Yeah, and to understand how this evolved on screen, we can look at this concept called transfictional storytelling. Richard Sangellet described it as when two or more texts exhibit a transfictional relationship, meaning they share elements like characters, imaginary places, fictional worlds.
Okay.
And here's a significant aha moment for you. William Proctor's research suggests that Universal's horror film series, way back in the early to mid-1940s, actually started experimenting with this transfictional storytelling.
The classic monsters. Frankenstein, Dracula.
Exactly. Now, Proctor notes these early experiments weren't always conducted as, let's say, carefully or thoroughly as modern audiences might expect.
Right, continuity wasn't maybe the top concern.
Probably not. But the release of Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman in 1942, often considered the first real film crossover, along with later ensemble films like House of Frankenstein in 44 and House of Dracula in 45. These actually established the first cinematic universe.
Wow, universal horror. That's fascinating how early those experiments were. Do you think audiences back then were as tuned into continuity as we are today, or was it more just the fun of seeing them together?
I suspect it was likely more casual, yeah. Just the sheer novelty of seeing these iconic monsters share the screen was probably the main draw. But the seeds were sown.
Definitely. We also see film universes that originated as adaptations of novels, like the James Bond film series.
Oh yeah, a classic example.
While elements from Ian Fleming's novels are definitely adapted, the films aren't really direct adaptations, are they? Nor were they even adapted in the same order as the books.
Not at all.
Yet, despite spanning over, 50, 60 years now, and multiple actors playing Bond and other recurring characters like M or Q, all these films are generally accepted as being set within a single, coherent, fictional continuity. More or less.
More or less, yeah. There are debates, but the intention is there.
Or think about the Planet of the Apes film series. Also started as a novel adaptation, but took huge creative liberties. The original 1968 film led to all those sequels that introduced time travel, shifted focus between apes and humans. There was even a TV series and an animated series that are sometimes considered part of that original story.
So it got pretty
And
complex.
then much later, you get a prequel reboot film series that actually explains the origins within that original timeline. Kind of a massive retcon,
A
really.
very successful one, too. And then, of course, you absolutely have to talk about Star Wars.
Can't avoid it.
Created by George Lucas. Started with the original trilogy, 77 to 83, then expanded massively with the prequel trilogy from 99 to 2005, and the lore was broadened even further through animation like Star Wars, The Clone Wars.
Yeah. Which Lucas was heavily involved in.
Deeply creatively involved, yeah.
Yeah.
Until 2014, which was a big turning point. That's when Lucasfilm announced that only those films in Clone Wars, plus everything fictional released after April 2014, would be considered official canon going forward.
Or the big canon reset.
Exactly. The animated series Star Wars Rebels was the first new thing under that rule, followed by the sequel trilogy starting in 2015. And Star Wars is just a prime example of that imaginary entertainment environment we talked about earlier.
Because it's everywhere.
It's everywhere. Video games, comics, novels, short stories, RPG adventures, all originally intended to share the same continuity. Lucasfilm's early teams, like the Lucasfilm Story Group, were specifically tasked with coordinating cohesive storytelling, ensuring consistency and synergy across all these platforms.
And what about all that older stuff, the expanded universe?
That's now branded as Star Wars Legends. Reprints of the EU works produced before that April 2014 cutoff. It's worth noting, though, Lucas himself had often praised and even incorporated elements from those Legends expansions into his own work back in the day.
Right. Okay, switching gears slightly but staying with big franchises. Comic book-based film universes. Obviously huge now.
Dominant, you could say.
You've got the X-Men film series starting way back in 2000. That makes it the longest-running superhero film franchise in basically the same continuity, though it's had its share of reboots and timeline shifts.
Yeah.
Then the Behemoth, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the MCU. Just
Yes.
the most films, multiple TV shows, tie-in comics. It exists in shared and parallel continuities as part of a multiverse now. Definitely an imaginary entertainment environment.
No question.
And then there was the DC Extended Universe, the DCEU, which had a rockier path and was recently officially replaced by the new DC Universe, the DCU, starting in 2024 under new leadership.
A fresh start for them. And interestingly, shifting genres again. In
Yeah.
horror,
Right.
the Conjuring franchise.
Oh yeah, the Warrens.
That universe, with all its spin-offs like Annabelle and the Nun, has actually been described by major outlets like Forbes and The Hollywood Reporter as the first successful cinematic universe after Marvel's. And as of a couple of years ago, the second most commercially successful overall.
Wow, really? More than DC or others?
Apparently so. In terms of consistent box office relative to budget, it's quite a surprising achievement for horror.
Definitely. And beyond the big studios, you have filmmakers creating their own smaller scale universes, like writer-director Kevin Smith's View Askew-niverse.
Clerks, Mallrats.
Exactly. A fictional universe used across several of his films, comics, even a TV series, all named for his production company. Characters like Jay and Silent Bob, played by Smith himself, pop up in almost all of them. And it all started with his debut film, Clerks, back in 1994.
A very distinct, very Smithian universe. And for a surprisingly fun, almost theoretical idea, did you hear about the proposed Simon and Garfunkel cinematic universe?
Wait, what? Simon and Garfunkel?
Yeah. Back in 2017, some movie creators publicly discussed this idea. Films would be titled after their songs. It kind of started jokingly with Edgar Wright's Baby Driver and Mark Webb's The Only Living Boy in New York. Wright even suggested making so long Frank Lloyd Wright.
That's amazing.
And other big names got interested. Rian Johnson apparently wanted to do Keep the Customer Satisfied. Lin-Manuel Miranda suggested Cecilia. Mark Webb and even Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson expressed interest in I'm a Rock.
That's brilliant. So the premise is Paul Simon and Art Garfunkel were just method actors their entire careers living out these film plots. I love it.
It's a fun thought experiment, if nothing else.
Totally. Okay, moving specifically to television for a moment. A really straightforward example is just when a TV series leads to spin-off series set in the same universe, right? Often focusing on maybe a single character from the original show, like the classic American sitcom Cheers leading to Frasier, focusing on Frasier Crane, and also the Tortellis, focusing on Nick Tortelli's family.
Yeah, very common structure. But then there's the wilder side of TV connections. The Tommy Westphall universe hypothesis.
Ah, yes, the rabbit hole.
It really is. It's this fascinating, almost sprawling fan theory suggesting hundreds of American television series, all take place in the same universe.
How does it work?
It builds on the basic idea that if an actor playing a character from Series A guest stars in Series B as that same character, then both Series A and Series B must exist in the same fictional universe.
Okay, makes sense. Lots of crossovers.
Lots. But here's where it gets really mind-bending. The theory takes its name from Tommy Westphall, a character in the final episode of the medical drama St. Elsewhere.
I remember St. Elsewhere. Great show.
It was. And the common interpretation of that very ambiguous final scene is that the entire universe of St. Elsewhere, and therefore, by extension, all the series connected to it through character crossovers, exists only within the imagination of Tommy Westphall, who is revealed to be autistic.
So potentially hundreds of shows are just in a snow globe.
Basically, yes.
Huh.
It's a mind-blower.
And if you're a fan of British sci-fi, Doctor Who, you'll know its vast spin-off media, audio plays, novels, comics affectionately called the Whoniverse. Well, it has relatively little consistency, really.
Yeah, that's true. It's produced by so many different entities over the years, the continuity is notoriously fluid.
Part of its charm, maybe?
Perhaps. More structured examples on TV would be networks like the CW, which deliberately built shared universes.
Yeah.
You had the Arrowverse, based on DC Comics characters, Arrow, Flash, Supergirl, etc.
Right, the yearly crossovers were huge events.
Exactly. And also the Vampire Diaries universe, which comprised the original show, the originals, and legacies, all interconnected.
And the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the MCU, obviously didn't stop at films. It expanded into multiple interconnected television universes, too. First through shows produced by the separate Marvel Television division on networks like ABC or Netflix.
Agents of SHIELD, Daredevil.
Right. And then, after Marvel Television got folded into Marvel Studios in late 2019, through the big-budget streaming shows developed directly for Disney Plus Store, starting with WandaVision in 2021. Much tighter integration there.
Definitely. And here's maybe the most surprising twist on the universe concept. It's even being applied to reality television.
Reality TV. How does that work?
Well, despite documenting real-life individuals, these shows involve significant producer guidance, right? Storylines are crafted.
Yeah.
And specifically, the TLC reality series 90 Day Fiancé has spawned a huge number of spin-offs. So many that its parent company, Warner Bros., Discovery, and others, openly refer to it as a universe.
Seriously, the 90 Day Fiancé universe?
Yep. It highlights how the concept of a universe is evolving beyond traditional fiction. It's being strategically applied to different kinds of media, like reality TV, maybe to capitalize on audience loyalty, extend the brand.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of blurs the lines between curated storytelling and real-life narratives.
That's wild.
Get this. In a 2022 investor presentation, Warner Bros. Discovery executives actually referenced the 90 Day Fiancé universe as being a core franchise for the company, putting it on par with Game of Thrones and the DC Comics superheroes.
Wow. Okay. That really shows how far the concept has stretched. It does challenge our traditional understanding of what a universe even is.
It certainly does.
Let's also consider animation. How do shared universes appear in animated movies and series? A huge one is the Mickey Mouse universe, isn't it?
Oh, massive. And it dates all the way back to the 1930s when the original animated cartoons were expanded into a newspaper comic strip.
Right.
And to address the inevitable discrepancies, times when Mickey is a steamboat captain in one cartoon and maybe a sorcerer's apprentice in another, or characters have different names or roles.
Yeah, how do they explain that?
The writers developed this clever idea. They think of the characters as being employed by Disney as actors.
Huh. Like they're just playing roles.
Exactly. Walt Disney himself, apparently, when asked if Mickey and Minnie Mouse were married, replied that yes, they were indeed married in their private life, but sometimes they appeared as just boyfriend and girlfriend for screen purposes.
So they're essentially saying Mickey and Minnie were method actors? That's hilarious.
Pretty much. And the Mickey Mouse universe is so big, it also includes the entire Donald Duck universe as, like, a subset within it.
Okay. And then there's that popular fan theory, the Pixar universe. The idea that all the Pixar animated movies from Toy Story to up to Inside Out actually take place in the same shared universe following some complex timeline.
Ah, yes. The Pixar theory. It's incredibly elaborate and fun to read about.
But is it true?
Well, here's the official debunking, straight from the source. At the 2015 D23 Expo, Disney's big fan convention, during a panel called Pixar Secrets Revealed, director Mark Andrews flat out rejected the theory. Yeah. And Ronnie Del Carmen, the co-director of Inside Out, reportedly added, "Do you know what kinds of meetings we'd have to make sure all our movies line up?"
Fair point. Okay, one more animation example. The DC animated universe, the DCAU.
Right, the timbers are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A proper television universe that encompass those classic animated series like Batman, the animated series Superman, the animated series Justice League. But it also included associated feature films, short films, comic books, and video games, all mostly consistent.
A very well-regarded and coherent animated universe.
Okay, how about video games and the internet? Shared timelines definitely originate there too.
Mm-hmm.
The influence of the internet on collaborative and interactive fiction, especially early on, led to a whole bunch of amateur shared universe settings. You had amateur authors contributing stories to mailing lists, story archives, Usenet news groups.
Yeah, things like SF Story and its spin-off Super Guy are often cited as examples of the internet's early potential for this kind of collaborative world building. Along with some more niche furry-themed examples like Tales from the Blind Pig or the Dargon Project.
Right.
Video games often present their own unique challenges for continuity, though. Look at the Command and Conquer real-time strategy games.
Oh yeah, CC.
The original series, starting in '95, and the spin-off Red Alert series, starting in '96, were initially sort of set in the same universe. They were connected by the recurring villain Kane, who had a cameo in the first Red Alert.
Okay.
But Red Alert is set in this alternate timeline where Hitler was removed from power early, leading to an Allied Soviet World War instead of World War II. And then Red Alert 2 completely ignored the ending of the first game's Allied campaign, which was supposed to lead into the original Command & Conquer's Tiberium timeline.
So they just changed it.
Pretty much. Later games in the Red Alert series further diverged. It really illustrates the tension between maintaining strict continuity and allowing creative freedom for new game installments, especially in interactive media where gameplay often comes first.
Makes sense. Okay, beyond the big screens, comics, games, shared universes are popping up in some other unexpected places too.
They really are versatile.
Like the 2000 stage musical Seussical. That presented several famous Dr. Seuss books and characters, Horton, The Cat in the Hat, The Who's, as all taking place in the same interconnected fictional world.
Right. A Seussiverse on stage. And think about toys. Hasbro toy products, particularly G.I. Joe and Transformers.
Two huge ones.
Their manufacturer, Hasbro, considers them to exist fictionally within a single Hasbro universe. This has led to related shared universes in other media, like the Hasbro comic book universe published by IDW, and more recently, the Energon universe launched by Skybound Entertainment, which also ties into G.I. Joe and Transformers.
So the toys themselves have lore connecting them.
Increasingly, yes.
Yeah.
It adds value and encourages crossover collecting.
And for a final, maybe really contemporary and intriguing example, the music industry.
Go on.
All kinds of works by the American singer-songwriter Taylor Swift. Her songs, albums, music videos, films she's directed, tours, promotional stuff, even the narratives surrounding her career have been collectively referred to by quite a few journalists and media outlets as a musical or cinematic universe.
The Taylor Swift universe.
Yeah. Suggesting interconnected themes, recurring characters or motifs, hidden messages, creating this whole immersive world for her fans to decode and explore across all her output.
That's a fascinating application of the term. Shows how much it's become part of our cultural vocabulary.
It really does. So after covering all that ground, what does this all mean? From those minute, almost legalistic rules trying to define comic book continuity decades ago, to these global media phenomena spanning films, TV, games, and beyond, and even surprising inclusions like reality TV and pop music, shared universes are truly expansive, and wow, they're still evolving, aren't they?
Absolutely. They're clearly a powerful storytelling device. They create these immersive, interconnected worlds that can invite deeper engagement and potentially a much richer experience for you, the listener, the audience. They showcase immense creativity, obviously. But they also pose significant challenges, as we've seen. Challenges in terms of creative control, maintaining consistency, managing fan expectations. It really demonstrates that constant push and pull between needing a unified vision for the world and allowing for individual creative freedom within it.
So here's a final thought for you to maybe mull over. As you consume your favorite stories, whether they're films, books, games, maybe even music, take a second to consider, are you just watching or reading a single story? Or are you actually stepping into a meticulously crafted or perhaps even spontaneously formed shared universe? One that might be far more interconnected with a richer hidden history than you ever imagined. What kind of shared universes will we see next, and how will they continue to challenge our very understanding of storytelling itself?